and they really the game's usually by 29th or 28th is when it's played. And so I've been down at the bowl site when the team gets there, and it's always been right around Christmas Day. So it's a little different this year because obviously that's not going to happen with COVID. So we're going to be at the game, but I think all the bowl stuff is going to be 2 days before the game, as opposed to the team's not going to practice at the facility like they've done in years past and things like that. So it's going to be a little different this year being at home for the holidays.
It is going to be different for a lot of folks. For the ACC football championship game, they're not letting a lot of folks up in there as far as with the media and everything. I mean, it's going to be just not a lot of people there for the game in the stadium.
Yeah, the media is, I think, everybody that covers both teams is getting at least one representative, will be there, one representative from the organization in there. And then, as far as the fans go, they're doing, and this is what the ACC's been doing all year in those regards, as far as, with the media. And then they're going to have, because of the North Carolina rule, only 7% of capacity can be put in the stadium. So for Charlotte, that means about 5,000 fans will be allowed to watch the game. So for what I understand, Clemson will have about 900 fans, and so will Notre Dame. Those were the number of tickets allotted to both schools. So about 1,000 each for both schools as far as their fans go. And then I think the other is with coaches and players, families, and then of course the rest goes to the corporate sponsors.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of blue seats. That's what we're going to see.
A lot of blue seats. What I hope they do is they spread out they use the bottom bowl to spread out the 5,000 fans. I think that will look better. Hopefully they don't have people in pockets up in the upper deck or anything like that. I hope they are able to do it that way, because I think then it would look better for TV. Because, that bottom bowl, you should be able to social distance 5,000 fans in that bottom bowl, I would imagine.
I'm just hoping that we don't have to deal with this next season. That's what I'm kind of hoping for. I'm proud that we have a season, but I'm looking forward to next season that we don't have to deal with this. So that's what I'm hoping for anyway. Let's talk a little bit. Go ahead. What you got?
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm the same way. I'm very fortunate. We've been blessed to have the season, and that's the best thing. And I think, we all should be thankful for, as you said, that we've able to go through a college football season. And now you're to the point where you're in a position to play these championship games, and you hope you can just continue to move forward and play, in the playoff games if Clemson were to get there, or just, college football in general. You hope it can continue to move forward. I think college football's done a good job continuing to press forward despite all the cancellations and things of that nature that we've seen from every league across the country.
Yeah, it is. There's been a lot of folks that are working behind the scenes to actually keep the sport moving, and we kind of gloss over that. But the fact that we've gotten this far and not completely shut down is a blessing in itself. But Coach Kelly said earlier today, hey, everybody's been tested. They're ready to go. So we're not going to have, theoretically, what happened with the Sun Belt Conference last night. So looks like we will have a game tomorrow, and everybody's pretty much ready to go. Have you heard of anything else as far as players not passing protocol, et cetera?
Everything seems pretty good on Clemson's end. They'll have their regular athletic release later this afternoon. They put out every Friday night. Clemson's been really good about that all year long. And then they'll have, tomorrow is when I guess it'll be tonight, actually. They did the test. So they had practice today, and then they always have one more test before they go to, this is a test the ACC administers. So they'll have the results of that probably this afternoon, if already. Usually by 4 or 5 o'clock they get the results of that. So that won't be released to us though until tomorrow morning, or tomorrow afternoon, I should say, about 90 minutes so for kickoff, before they tell us who's available and who's not for the game. So Notre Dame says they're clear to go though. I would imagine the majority of the Clemson players are too, and just imagine, we still got to wait and see the results of Clemson's test as they, what they get back. But I would imagine they seem to be okay. Knock on wood. They've done pretty good for the most part all year long, so I wouldn't imagine there'll be any changes for this time. The players have been really good about it for the most part.
I want to ask you a couple of questions about the game itself. The first matchup, of course, up at Notre Dame. Notre Dame wins in double overtime. The line that sticks out to me is Travis Etienne, 18 carries for 28 yards. Notre Dame is the first team, in my opinion, this season that kind of made him, I don't want to say an afterthought, but
look human.
Yeah, I mean, you give Travis Etienne 18 carries, and I guarantee you, if you'd told me that at the beginning of the game, I would have said at minimum he would have had at least 90 yards. They held him to 28 yards. But then the other thing that comes to mind, too, though, with this Notre Dame defense is the North Carolina game where they held their two prime running backs there under a combined 100 yards. This Notre Dame defense is really good at stopping the run.
Well, they are, and they have been all year. You know, they've shut everybody down. Look what they did to North Carolina's running backs, right? I mean, you know, just kind of stuffed them, if you will. And they did a good job with Travis. And, you know, I don't think that's really going to change as much. Now, what I will say about Tony Elliott, you mentioned it. He said he had 18 carries for 28 yards. Well, Tony kept giving them the rock. And if you remember at the end of the game, actually, that last drive where Clemson went up by 7 points, that was the best drive of the game running the football for Travis. He actually, I think, had most of his 28 yards came on that drive, including like a 7-yard touchdown run right there that gave Clemson the lead. So, you know, Tony Elliott, give him credit. He's going to keep running the ball enough to say, okay, yeah, you're stopping it, but we got to keep running it because, you know, that's what predicates their passing game. And so they're going to keep trying it, and you got a running back who's explosive enough. So eventually if you give him enough carries, at some point he's going to do something with it. And I think that's going to be the game plan tomorrow. But Clemson's got, I'm going to tell you, one of the keys to the game, and Dabo Swinney talked about it today, you know, they got to be efficient on third down. They were 4-15 the last game. Notre Dame's one of the best in the country at getting off the field. And so they got to be efficient on third down. And to be efficient on third down, that means on first and second, you got to get yourself in good situations. You got to stay ahead of the chains. That's where Travis Etienne in the running game is going to be important. So my whole thing is this: the key for Clemson tomorrow, one of the keys, I should say, is they got to run for 100 yards. If they run for 100 yards on this Notre Dame defense, then I think that's going to open up the passing game enough. And let's keep in mind, having Trevor Lawrence back there running the zone reads, running the RPOs, something that they could not do because, you know, DJ was injured and banged up, so they didn't want to run him because, you know, they couldn't afford to get him hurt. So I don't think that's going to be the case tomorrow because you know what you have in DJ, how he can throw the football and how he can play in a big pressure game. On the road, you feel comfortable to let Trevor just run the offense as it is. And I think that's what you're going to see the difference tomorrow. Clemson's going to be a different offense, especially the running game and the RPOs, than it was when it played at Notre Dame on November 7th.
With that game on November the 7th, though, do you think Trevor Lawrence comes into this? And by the way, I don't think that it was you can't lay that game on Trevor Lawrence, in my opinion. But still, he's the quarterback. Do you think there's a chip on his shoulder with that game where he's like, you know what, if I would have been there, maybe things would have been different, and I'm going to show people tomorrow in Charlotte?
I think, yeah, he's a competitor. You know, that was killing him to be sitting on the sideline and not being able to do anything about it. And, you know, you're talking about arguably the best player in college football not being involved in what was the biggest game of the year. And now this is going to be the biggest game of the year, part 2. And now he gets to play in this one. So he's definitely chomping at the bits. You know, he said that he got, you know, when you sit on the sidelines and you see things, how they play out, you get a better understanding of what it looks like. And I liked what he said that, you know, hey, you know, I kind of got to see some things just from a different perspective on what Notre Dame does defensively. And then now I get to see it on the field, and I get to go over to DJ, who also saw it on the field and is now seeing it in a different perspective on the sidelines. And he thinks that's going to benefit them tomorrow when they play that game, as far as being able to communicate with each other on things they saw in the first game and then what they're seeing now from both perspectives. So it's actually a really good perspective, and I think it's going to play dividends for Clemson without a doubt in that game. And man, you got to think now, if he goes out there and balls tomorrow, and he throws for 400-plus yards, which, let's be honest, if DJ did that, you would think Trevor would have an opportunity to do the same. And then he throws for 400 yards, maybe 3 or 4 touchdowns go along with it, has a perfect game, if you will. What's to say that he's now not the favorite to win the Heisman Trophy? Because you're playing in the biggest game, and you're the star in the biggest game, and you balled out in the biggest game. I don't see how it would be hard for anybody on the Heisman votes to say that he's not worthy, because if anything, he proved his difference maybe in the game. Him not being in that first game was the difference of why Clemson didn't win it, which would help his case even more, in my opinion. What do you think?
In my opinion, I don't think that they're going to give any Clemson player the Heisman simply because Dabo Swinney pulls his guys and they can't put up eye-popping numbers in the fourth quarter. But that's just my opinion on the Heisman Trophy. I also think the Heisman Trophy should go to Devontae Smith because I think he is the best player in college football. No disrespect to Trevor Lawrence, but Devontae Smith just takes over games. And Lawrence can do the same thing, but just from what I've seen from Devontae Smith, and I'll stand by that, I just think that you take him away from Alabama, Alabama may lose 2 games.
Well, the thing about that, and my argument to your argument on that is, with Devontae Smith, great wide receiver, no doubt, but I want to see him take a couple more punts back for touchdowns, be all Desmond Howard-like, if you will. Because to me, a wide receiver is only as good as his quarterback. And he's got a decent quarterback. They got a pretty good quarterback who throws him the ball and makes sure he gets it. When I look at him and I compare him to the kid at LSU last year, he's not better than that kid at LSU. He gets open and he does things and he gets open, but he's not making those eye-popping catches
Are you talking about Jamar Chase?
Yes.
Okay.
He's not making those kind of catches that Jamar Chase was making, where you're just like every week he was making a Sports Center catch. You're not seeing that with Smith. You've only seen him make one incredible catch this year. Not saying he can't do it. Every time I see Smith catching the ball, and I've watched Alabama all year, he's running wide open where there's not a guy within 30 yards of him. So I don't know how much of that is him, which some of it is, and how much of it is just the teams he's playing have very poor secondaries, and they're just not in position to make plays, and there's busted coverages everywhere. I want to see him make those plays against a top elite defense, top 10 kind of defense, which he's only played one this year. And I really believe in my whole heart of hearts, if you will, that if Georgia had any kind of quarterback play, Georgia would have beat Alabama, because in that first half, Alabama's receivers couldn't do anything on Georgia. And I think Georgia's defense just wore down in the second half because they were on the field constantly. So I'm not a believer in Alabama yet until I see them play an elite defense that has an elite quarterback to match them, so they can match Alabama's offense and put pressure on Alabama's offense to have to go score against an elite level defense.
Well, we can agree to disagree and still be friends, but I think
that's what we do, right?
Right, but I think also missing the game is going to hurt Trevor Lawrence on that front too. Even though it's during the pandemic, I still think the Heisman voters are going to maybe hold that against him. So, I agree with you 100%, and it's unfortunate because the college football playoff committee is not holding that against Ohio State. So that's the unfortunate part about it. We've talked all week about the college football playoff committee has basically, I think there's 13. I think there's 15 people on the committee. I can't remember. 12 of them went to Northwestern, and all of them are pushing for Ohio State. And it's an absolute sham. And I've talked about Southern Cal being a Power 5 team that is playing for the Pac-12 championship tonight. They're going to finish undefeated with and I don't think this has ever happened. Have we had a Power 5 team that goes undefeated and plays more than 6 games, wins their conference championship, and they probably won't make the top 10 in the CFP rankings? But we're supposed to have Ohio State shoved down our throat, even though they've only played 5 games. And the one game against a ranked opponent, they needed a pick 6 to win at the Horseshoe. It's a sham what they're doing with the college football playoff. Yeah, it's crazy. Anyway, we could talk about that too at some other juncture. But my final thing with this Clemson and Notre Dame game tomorrow, and I think we've talked a little bit about this week. Do you think that 2 parts to this? First of all, do you think Notre Dame actually cares? And what I mean by that is that I think win or lose, they're in the playoff regardless. And Do you think that this experience with the ACC championship, if they can get it, would be enough to keep them in the conference as a football member?
Well, first of all, the first part is I do think they care. Brian Kelly came out today and he started off the press conference saying, let's go play. I want to play now. If we could play today, we're ready to go. I mean, so I think there's excitement there from Notre Dame's standpoint to win a conference championship, something they've never been able to do before. So I think there is a level of, yes, they care a lot. Also, I'm not 100% sure Notre Dame gets in if they get blown out by Clemson. If Clemson were to go in there, and let's say there is a big difference with Clemson with Trevor Lawrence and Tyler Davis, James Skalski, and those guys in there, and Clemson beats them handedly, then the committee is going to look at Notre Dame and say, okay, well, Clemson had everybody on their team that are difference makers, and they took it to Notre Dame on a neutral field. So what does that tell us about Notre Dame? And that's why I said I don't know, they'll reevaluate that win over Clemson, from November 7th, I think. And so I don't think it's a done deal if Notre Dame gets blown out. So but as far as Notre Dame staying in the ACC going forward, I don't think it's going to happen. Brian Kelly's comments earlier in the week said he was asked about this, and he talked about how great the ACC is and the relationship as a conference in the other sports and how appreciative they were. But then he ends it by saying our DNA is being an independent and playing our traditional rival teams. And so he didn't come out and say it, but it sounded like he said that Notre Dame kind of wants to stay the status quo and continue to be an independent and be able to play the games they want to play.
The college football world needs Notre Dame versus the Air Force Academy and Navy every year. I mean, we have to have that. I mean, let's just be completely honest. We've got to have that. Heaven forbid we have like new rivals like, I don't know, Clemson, Florida State, Boston College. They play Boston College every year anyway. But playing Miami, they could become more of a rival with them. But no. Let's play the Naval Academy and let's play Air Force and and Michigan. Yeah. We need more of those Michigan games. That's what we need is the college football in the college football world there, Coach Kelly. Anyway, well, tomorrow's matchup, though, I mean, Clemson is a 10.5-point favorite. Line started out at 7. Are you confident in that 10.5 points?
To be honest, I am. I believe that Clemson is better with Trevor Lawrence. As great as DJ Uiagalelei played in that game, I still think they're better with Trevor because I still think there were some plays that they couldn't make because Trevor wasn't in there. There's things on the offense they couldn't do because Trevor wasn't in there. I think they're also better, when you look at Tyler Davis and his ability to push the pocket and play that position at defensive tackle, nose guard position. I think that's a big difference that people kind of undervalue, especially in pushing the pocket and making a guy like Ian Book uncomfortable and forcing him to run outside the tackles faster than he wants to and not being able to step up in the pocket and find those lanes. That's going to be a big deal. And then James Skalski also being back and Mike Jones at linebacker, another big deal. Those guys are starters for a reason, right? And so I think those guys do make a difference in this game, and they are a touchdown or 2 touchdown difference makers, when you put them all together. And I don't, knock on wood, don't believe that Travis Etienne's going to give 7 points away to Notre Dame again either. So I think Notre Dame's going to have to earn it, play the same way they did before to beat Clemson, but maybe have to earn it more because I think they're going to see a more talented, focused Clemson team than they saw the first time. And not that Clemson wasn't focused, but obviously Clemson didn't play its best game. And Clemson still led with 22 seconds to go, in that football game. And so that to me tells me that if all things are equal, playing on a neutral field, Clemson's the better team, the better roster. Clemson's playing its best game. And so for that, I think Clemson probably covers the spread. I'm thinking probably like a 14-point game, somewhere in that range.
Will Vandervoort from the ClemsonInsider.com. And, of course, we've talked before about your book. You can run by a bookstore and get that for your favorite Clemson fan over the holidays. Tell us about your book so people can educate some folks on some Clemson football memories there. Yeah,
they can go to Amazon.com also and order it. It's called Hidden History of Clemson Football. It's exactly what it is. It's the stories around the program through the years, whether we're talking about the Orange Britches, whether we're talking about bowl games, Coach Howard, Danny Ford, Dabo Sweeney, obviously, stories kind of like embedded within those national championship seasons that all Clemson fans have come to love. And then just, different kind of other stories, like how the program started and how it went to its first bowl game and the story behind that. And, just all those little anecdotes that people love to read about, when you're talking about a program that has had the rich history that Clemson has had over the years. So, yeah, it's a fun read. I enjoyed writing it. And so, yeah, people can go to, obviously to the regular bookstores and find them, but also if they can't, go on to Amazon.com and they can find it there.
All right, Will, man, I appreciate it, man. And we'll be following you along on Twitter and everything tomorrow at Steeler Will. And we look forward to talking with you later on, man. Thanks so much.
All right, man. We'll talk to y'all guys later.
All right, there you go. Will Vandervoort from the ClemsonInsider.com giving us an inside look at that Clemson Notre Dame matchup tomorrow. Should be a good game up in Charlotte. We'll take a quick break, and we come back. We'll have more. What Brian Kelly said today that made me go, huh? Talk about that and a lot more in a moment on the rundown. This is Fox Sports Radio 1400. All right, appreciate you folks online, man. I'm going to grab some water. I'll be right back. Welcome back to the rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400. My name is Rob Sanders. Thanks to Will Vandervoort for joining us from the Clemson Insider. We appreciate him. As we've got some comments in the chat room we'll talk about momentarily. But I have to get into what Coach Brian Kelly said today when asked by our buddy Lawton Swan from Clemson Sports Talk, which follows us today. It was pretty interesting. Some of the comments one of the comments that was made by Brian Kelly, that is interesting. And just his idea of, it's like he's bashing the Rose Bowl is what it basically comes down to. Here's the question and comment from Brian Kelly for the press conference earlier today.
Would you guys opt out if it wasn't what it is moving forward? The high stakes bowl games and college football playoff?
I'm not sure we'll play in the playoffs if parents can't be there, to be honest with you. Why would we play if you can't have the families at the game? So a bowl game, yeah, we would opt out. If you can't have families at bowl games, I mean, why would you go to a game where your families can't be part of it? What's the sense of playing a game, in an area of the country where, you know what I mean, nobody can be part of it? Yeah, so it doesn't surprise me at all. And look, there's so many sacrifices these kids have had to make, and to go to a bowl game where there's no real opportunities for them to do anything, right? They're going to stay on campus. They may show up at the bowl game 24, 48 hours prior to. So there's no real reward. Go home and see your families. You know what I mean? Go home for Christmas. That's the reward, really, more than anything else than playing in a bowl game. And it's just different. It's not the bowl game's fault. I get it. We're in a pandemic and there's, restrictions and things like that. But, we got to think about the student athletes in this situation and not having a chance to share this with their families after being away and sacrificing so much. You can see why they wouldn't want to play.
All right. So let me break that down for you. That's about 90 seconds there from Lawton's question to what Coach Kelly had to say. Basically, what he's lobbying for is that he wants to go to the Sugar Bowl. That's basically what it boils down to. He is not, if the college football playoff committee says, hey, you're going to have to go and play in the Rose Bowl, Notre Dame is not opting out of a chance to play for a national title. I don't think that's happening. He's just opting to say, hey, look, we'd really appreciate it if you'd send us to the Sugar Bowl. That's what he's going after. Let's take a call before we get out of this segment here. Welcome into the Rundown. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Rob. It's Ray. How are you doing today?
What's up, Ray? How are you, man?
Hey, well, I just want to call, kind of segue on your guest earlier. The Vanderway, was that his name? I'm sorry.
Vandervoort, Will Vandervoort, yeah.
Yeah, Will, of course. How can I forget him? Well, anyway, just kind of a segue on that. Yeah, I really feel like tomorrow with the conference championship games, I feel like the guys who are like the front runners for the Heisman, I think tomorrow is their day. And I really feel as, if Lawrence goes out there and he has a big game, he throws 3 or 4 touchdowns or maybe 5 touchdowns and they handle Notre Dame, just win. They don't have to necessarily annihilate them. And he has a big game and a big game. That's the key. I think he becomes a front runner for the Heisman. I really do.
I think he's probably already in the mix regardless, but you never know until those things come out. But yeah, that's a good point, man.
I really do, and I think, and I'm hoping, going forward that the guys, the downtown athletic club, whatever, the guys that vote on the Heisman, all the voters out there and everything, right, they wait after these conference championship games to announce who they're voting for. I think that's fair because that's going to be one of your biggest games of the year. And I think tomorrow is just going to be, I think it's almost kind of like the, I don't want to say tryouts, but it's like, if you're a Heisman front runner, you better bring it tomorrow if you want to win that trophy. And I think tomorrow, I think it's going to all come down to what happens tomorrow. I really do. And I like Trevor's chances there. And one last thing, Rob, whenever it's South Carolina, whenever Beamer gets all of his coaching staff announced, which
right,
hopefully will be next week, I really appreciate the job you do with Tim and Pops, after the games on another station.
Yeah, on our sister station.
I tell you what, yeah, and you had Pops on, I believe, last week and really enjoyed that. Mm-hmm. If maybe next week, and who knows if Carolina's going to a bowl by COVID default, I would really like to get Tim's take on all this Carolina football stuff. I think I could find it amusing.
Tim and I are friends, and I'll give him a call. We may get him on the show next week. And get his opinion. We had Corey Jenkins on Wednesday. I'm sorry. And Corey talked about what he thought about Shane Beamer and everything. You can check that out. That's in the podcast. You can go and download that wherever you find your favorite podcast. But yeah, if there's coordinators announced next week, we'll be on the air talking about it. So, all right.
All right. Well, Rob, I do appreciate your show, and I look forward to some good football tomorrow.
I hear you, man.
Have a good weekend, man.
Thanks, Ray. Appreciate it. All right, one more call here. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Rundown.
Yeah, hey Rob. It's Spencer calling in, and
Hi,
you know,
Spencer.
I was just watching on on YouTube, and appreciate the show.
Okay, what you got for the program today?
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you, do you think that this Alabama defense can stop Kyle Trask? Because against Matt Corral, they got lit up by Ole Miss earlier this season.
I think that the Trask to Pitts connection is going to have some opportunities to shine. It sounds like a law firm, by the way, the Trask to Pitts, but Kyle squared, whatever it is you want to call it. But Pitts can make plays on just about anybody. And I think that when they play football on Saturday, I mean, he's the one player that you could take from Florida that would start for Alabama regardless. And I think those two are going to make plays. I mean, I really, really do. And I think the Florida offense is going to come out and they're going to be a little angry after their performance against LSU. I'm not sure, like people talk about how Alabama's defense played better the second half of the season. Yeah, when you're playing Kentucky, you're going to look a lot better. Kentucky can't throw the ball. So I think that's going to, yeah, I think that's going to balance out a little bit. Now, I think Alabama's going to win, and I'm going to take my picks against the spread later on, but Florida is going to score points tomorrow. Let's not go under this illusion that they're going to quit and they're just going to mail in the season. You're going to get a fired up Florida team tomorrow. I just think that Alabama's just the better team right now.
I'm just so sick of, this is one of the greatest Alabama teams ever. I mean, the quarterback play in the SEC West, you have Bo Nix, you have Rodgers, who's not even going to be starting next year, Felipe Franks, who was pretty average at Florida, and you have to admit, Arkansas after Missouri, they kind of mailed it in. So what you have Bo Nix. I mean, this West has just been so terrible.
Well, I mean, Kellen Mond's a pretty good quarterback at Texas A&M. I mean, he's the guy after Mac Jones, but the rest of the West is pretty terrible. And you know what? I could lobby that the East is garbage, and people will be like, huh? Yeah, I think the East is garbage. And what I mean by that is that Florida's pretty good, but Georgia has coaching issues. If you tell me that coaching staff is a great coaching staff and they put that young man on the field to play against Florida earlier this season with Daniel sitting on the bench, that's a coaching issue. You couldn't figure out that kid was talented enough to do what he's done from there on out. Georgia probably is a lot closer in that game with Alabama if Daniels plays. So Georgia has coaching issues. And then after that, you can throw the rest of them in a box. South Carolina, Vanderbilt, Tennessee, Kentucky, all of them into a box and draw out one after the other. They're all pretty much the same in my opinion. So the East
Rob,
is not that great either. So
Stetson Bennett, I mean, everybody watching the game could see this guy's 5'8". He can't throw the ball at all. And JT Daniels in the Monken offense can certainly be scary. And it's disappointing that LSU found their footing against Florida, because I want to see two SEC teams get in. Right. And I really think Florida with Kadarius Toney, because that guy's like Tyreek Hill. He's the most underrated player in college. I wish that Florida could get in. So maybe Notre Dame can win tomorrow. And great show. I'll hang up and listen.
Appreciate it, brother. Thanks so much. And I'm not ripping the entire SEC. I'm just saying you've got Alabama, and then there's a ledge, and then there's Texas A&M and Florida. And then after that, it kind of drops. And let me make sure I put this out there. Georgia has probably one of the more complete rosters in the country. So it's not an issue of talent at Georgia. It's an issue of Kirby Smart at Georgia and his ability to put the right players on the field this year. And you know what? Georgia's got more problems because they're going into this bowl game that they're going to play, and they already got guys opting out. Now, I know that it's a pandemic and everything else, and people can go out. I get that. But here's the thing. When you've got enough of these guys that opt out, and I'm not saying this is going to happen, but if Coastal Carolina ends up in a New Year's Six game against Georgia, and they're playing their second string at Georgia, essentially at most spots, if Coastal Carolina beefs up and beats Georgia, that's going to be something that is going to hang in that Georgia fan's mouth for a long time, and it's going to need a lot more than Listerine to get rid of it. No one wants that. No one wants a repeat of what happened with the Texas game where they were the better team, and it wasn't even close, and Texas beat them in a game that they didn't care about. But that's what's going to happen if a lot more of these guys continue to opt out. We'll take your calls at 803-978-1832. Quick break. When we come back, we'll have more for you on the rundown. This is Fox Sports Radio 1400. Yeah, picks in just a moment. SEC dog, I'm using Coastal as an example. I mean, it could be any team, and you know what I'm talking about with a lot of these guys opting out. That's the whole point. I use Coastal as an example. You're better than the majority of the teams that are out there. I've goofed on you guys for a long time, but the reality is that you've got the roster. You got a coaching problem. I mean, the more and more you look at it. So, and it's about the fact that you got the guys opting out and then going from there. I got to grab my picks. I'll be right back. Here comes Jerome's funny. Here comes the excuses from the Georgia fans. By the way, Mr. Savage College Football is sitting in here with us. If you're on Instagram, please follow him. He puts out great college football content and knows what he's doing over there. So if you're on Instagram, go and follow him. And welcome back to the rundown here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. I use Coastal Carolina as an example with the Georgia matchup there. I'm just saying, Georgia's not going to have their best team out there. They're not. They're just not. And they're going to go into whoever they end up playing, which, by the way, I'm looking at from the Athletics, Stuart Mandel, who I guess I'm showing my age a little bit. I remember when he worked for SI, but I read this morning Stuart Mandel's picks from the Athletic, and he had, just so we're all on the same page here, let's make sure that, here we go. His latest bowl projections in the New Year's Six, he has got Georgia playing Cincinnati. Georgia fans, what do you think of Cincinnati? Team that's highly thought of in the American Conference. Now, I want you to take away from the fact that you're going to have some guys that just aren't there. How do you feel about having a depleted matchup going against a Cincinnati team that's hungry? Back out to the phones, 803-978-1832. Good afternoon. Welcome to the rundown.
Hello, Rob. It's Bobby and Casey.
Bobby, what's up, brother?
Okay, one quick thing here. It's just come out on John Talty, and Paul Feinbaum brought it up on his first hour of his show. Sarkisian, after Alabama's game Saturday night, will be interviewed by the Auburn Tigers.
You're joking, right?
No, I'm not. You can go to Talty, and I think he writes for AOL.com, and also Matt Zenit, I think, is on the Auburn beat. But Feinbaum just said it. So I mean, there's a piece if you click on it once you look at it at Twitter. So I'm not pulling your leg.
No, I'm with you on that. I think that Auburn has stuck themselves have shot themselves in the foot with this coaching search, and now they're going to Alabama to get their assistant. Wow.
Yeah, but also here, do you know what the record is against Saban's disciples?
Not very good.
0-41.
It's not very
Saban
good.
is undefeated.
Yeah, it's not
against
very good.
all the people that have left his coaching tree. That's including Pruitt, Kirby Smart, and I don't know if Will Muschamp was considered part of it.
Well, Will Muschamp, he coached with him, so yeah, Muschamp never beat him. So
I think it's like all time
didn't
0-41.
really beat anybody.
All right, you're welcome, Rob. Have a good day.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. One of the comments from the YouTube group says the Dogs aren't even playing this week, but that's all that you're talking about. Worry about Dabo Swinney. Look, this is a college football show, man. It's not just Clemson, man. Calm down. Georgia fans getting upset. All right, we'll take a quick break. We come back and we'll talk about what we just heard there, and we'll get my picks for championship weekend. More of the rundown in just a moment on Fox Sports Radio 1400. You got to stop being so sensitive over there, SEC dog. It's not about your team that much, man. You're the prettiest girl in the whole world. It's just your date's ugly. The guy that's your coach has a Mr. Potato Head haircut. What's wrong with him? It's ridiculous. Can you really defend Kirby Smart there, SEC dog? I mean, I'd love to hear it. This would be outstanding. I think that anybody else not named Will Muschamp coaching that Georgia team goes 12-0. There you go. Simple as that. Shout out to Fruity Baboon saying you found the channel. Make sure you subscribe. Click the little thing down there on the bottom. All right, so we didn't even get to half the stuff I wanted to today. I guess I can go over this with you guys really quick here before we head back to the radio waves. The folks at Louisiana should be happy today that they don't get to play Coastal Carolina because Coastal Carolina was going to beat their butt anyway. And I wrote this down. They should send them a Christmas card. Why? Because they're going to get a better bowl slot because they don't have to play in a championship game. So if I'm down in Louisiana, I'm going to say, hey, guess what? For the holiday season, we don't have to play in a championship game. So we're going to keep just that one loss to a top 12 Coastal Carolina team, and we will get a better bowl berth. Trust me, if they lost that second game, what bowl game would they be playing in? The Boca Raton Bowl? The Idaho Potato Bowl? Who the hell wants to play in that bowl? Seriously, they're going to get a much better bowl slot with a much better payout because they didn't play this game. They should thank the folks down at Coastal Carolina for running around and having parties or doing whatever it is that they were doing down there in the land of mullets and bad decisions, okay? Because that's going to help them out a lot. So I wanted to see the game, but in the end, does it really matter? They get a better bowl slot. Simple as that. Also, I've got the stuff, and we may save this for when we come back here on the air in about 45 seconds. The reasons South Carolina should play a bowl game. Now, I know some people are going to laugh at this, but there's a reason South Carolina should play in a bowl game. I'll tell you what it is. Edwin's over there laughing at me. Angie's talking about Clemson played in the famous Idaho Potato Bowl. I went to that game. I did the, what was it, the snowmobiling? Yeah. Crazy. Sam the Seed. After Kirby let Justin Fields leave, all credibility with Kirby's quarterback evaluation is suspect. You, sir, are right. You are absolutely right. Look at you. He doesn't know how to evaluate quarterbacks. That we've figured that out. He knows how to recruit, knows how to do that. Evaluating quarterbacks, not so much. All right, here we go as we come back here. Welcome back to the rundown. Out to the phones we go. And welcome into the show. What's going on, man?
Hey, nothing much, you?
What you got, buddy?
I was wanting to talk about
how do you feel about the class that they signed for Clemson?
Clemson's class is going to be a top 5 class. It might move into the top 3 if they can get Corey Foreman to sign with them. I don't think he's going to do that, though. I think he's going to go to Southern Cal. The thing with these classes, you can have the greatest class rated in the world, and you need to have a highly rated class. I agree with that. But you don't know much until they get on a football field and actually hit guys that are their same size. Because right now, they're hitting guys that are tiny little fellas that are basically a slimmed down version of me trying to tackle them. So they're going to look like man beast out there. So there's that. All right.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
I can agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
But another question. How do you feel about Carolina getting Beamer?
I think that's a great hire for South Carolina because it's different from what they've done before. They didn't go and say, hey, we're going to dig up Bear Bryant and get just a coach that's already made his bones somewhere else. It's a refreshing thing to have a coach that says, you know what? I want to do something here. I want to be here. Not, hey, I did something somewhere else. And I'm not knocking Coach Spurrier, so let's make sure people don't get angry. Gamecock Twitter yelling at me at Rob Sounds Good about, oh, he's bashing Steve Spurrier. I'm not. I'm just saying these other coaches they were retreads. They made their bones somewhere else. Shane Beamer's coming in here, and he said he waited for this job. And guess what? Now he's got it, and we get to see what he's going to do with it. It's really cool when you look at it from that perspective.
Oh, yeah, I'm glad that he got hired. And honestly, I'm not a Carolina fan, but I actually want to see them win an SEC championship before I die.
Well, how old are you?
Well, I'm only 24.
Well, then you've got plenty of time. Don't worry about it. You could be like one of my folks, family that lives up in Indiana that waited for the Cubs to win a World Series. But, yeah, I'm with you on that, buddy.
Well, I thought they was going to win one whenever they went in against Auburn with Cam Newton that year, but
yeah, not so much. Yeah. All right, man. Hey, thanks for calling the show today, buddy. Enjoy the games this weekend.
Okay, you too, and thanks. I'm a long-time listening.
All right, buddy.
I love your show.
Well, thank you, man. All right, have a good
Y'all
day.
have a good weekend.
All right, buddy. One more caller. Here we go. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Rundown.
Hey, boss, how's it going?
What's going on, brother?
Well, I was actually just listening to you online, and I wanted to chime in on a couple of things.
All right, what you got?
Well, number one, since you brought up Georgia, I think I've got Georgia pretty much figured out. I think Kirby Smart's trying to win national titles the way Nick Saban did in 2009, and that's not going to work anymore.
Are you talking about with his approach on offense?
Yes.
Yeah. I think, and Nick Saban, what did Nick Saban do? He evolved. He realized you can't run a pro-style two-back offense with the fullback and everything else and expect to win national titles. You got to have great receivers. You got to have a great quarterback and then go from there. So I agree with you on that.
And I agree that Nick Saban had to learn those things. And I think it's a little unfair to expect it so early into Kirby Smart's head coaching career. I mean, how long has Nick Saban been a head coach before he made that change?
Yeah, I mean, that's a fair statement, but I mean, he's going into year 6. So how long do you want to give him?
Well, I'm not a Georgia fan. I don't care how long they give him.
Okay. I mean, but I get what you're saying, but in the SEC, when you look around, especially at the conference right now, Gus Malzahn was fired. He was 34 games over 500 and won 3 out of 8 games against Nick Saban, and that's not good enough. So Kirby Smart he can't make this kind of decision at the quarterback spot where he basically let Justin Fields go away, and now he couldn't figure out who was going to be the quarterback this year, and it ended up, I think, costing them a national title.
Well, maybe the light bulb's clicked on at this point, and he sees what he has to do going forward. But outside of that, I wanted to chime in on the Clemson Notre Dame game. And
how about it?
I don't think Trevor Lawrence is going to be the big factor in this game like a lot of fans seem to think.
He's not.
I really think it's going to be those 2 linebackers that they were missing and how they're going to contain Ian Book and make Ian Book beat him in the pocket, which he is not able to do.
I agree with you on that, but I think it comes down to Tyler Davis, who's going to be playing on Sundays, and a lot of those yards that Notre Dame got up the middle with Williams, it's not going to happen tomorrow. Not going to happen.
It was really going to cut into their run game as well.
Yep, I completely agree with you on that. So we don't have anything to fight about today. Why don't you just call me an idiot and hang up the phone? Because it's about where we are.
Can. I'm a Miami Hurricanes fan, so we can find plenty to argue about, I'm sure.
I have a great Miami headline from like 10 years ago where it's Miami football team ducks gunshots and returns fire, because apparently someone shot at them during practice down there, and then someone actually returned fire from the field. So a great headline from the Miami Herald. I'll have to get that and post that online.
That's common. That's common down there. That's no big deal. That's just another day in the neighborhood.
All right, man. Hey, I appreciate you joining us on the rundown today, buddy. Thanks so much.
Yes, sir.
All right, there you go. All right, so picks. We got to go quick here. As we roll along here, let's go. Our Air Force and Army, the president, when it's the Commander-in-Chief trophy, it's a pick 'em. Give me Army to win that game straight up. Other matchups, what is it? Arizona State and Oregon State tonight. I am going to take Oregon State at home, and you can give me the 8 points. I think Oregon State wins that game outright. Northwestern and Ohio State for this weekend. That's for the Big 12, Big 10 championship. Ohio State's a 20.5-point favorite, down to 18 in some spots. If you're going to give me 20.5, give me Northwestern. I'll roll with the smart kids. And I'll tell you what, nobody's been really talking about Northwestern. Not much. Yes, we've heard that their offense is terrible. We've heard that they lost to Michigan State. But you know what? If you keep telling people, you know what? You're awful. You're awful. You're awful. You're awful. They're going to come back eventually and pop someone on the mouth. And I don't know if it's going to be Ohio State, but we shall see. Clemson and Notre Dame, it's the line's up to 10.5. I always go with at the start. If it's at 10.5, I'm going to take Notre Dame to cover. If it's 7.5, I'm taking Clemson to cover that. I think it'll be about a 10-point game, so that half point gets me there. Alabama and Florida. Alabama is opened up as a 14.5-point favorite. They're now a 17.5-point favorite. In that matchup, I think that Florida is going to score points, but Alabama's got better players. There's something else to throw in there. Bobby told us earlier that Steve Sarkisian is going to interview at Auburn. You think those players are going to look at him stupid in the locker room after that gets out? I don't know. Give me Alabama to cover, because I don't think that people end up being rich, as my buddy Carolina Jackpot says, by voting or betting against Alabama. So give me Alabama to cover the 17.5. Texas A&M and Tennessee, this could be the swan song for Jeremy Pruitt. Texas A&M is a 14-point favorite. I think that they will cover. One other interesting game, Central Florida and BYU. That is on the 22nd. We'll get into that more later on, but I like that game. We'll talk about that more next week. All right, don't forget, Lawton Swan of Clemson Sports Talk is next. He is the czar of Clemson Sports. Be sure to follow him on Twitter. He's at Clemson Sports. I'm on Twitter at Rob Sounds Good. Podcast for the show will be up at 5 o'clock. We will be doing a show Monday and Tuesday next week. And then I got to do all this stuff that my wife wants me to do for the holidays after that. But we will have a show on Monday and Tuesday breaking down who will be in the CFP Final Four. We'll have that, and hopefully some more bowl announcements. We'll have all that for you next week on the Rundown. Thank you guys for checking out the show. I really appreciate it. My name is Rob Sanders. We will see you on Monday. Hey, I appreciate you guys online, man. If you could like the show and share it every day, 3 to 4, we break it down, man. So if you guys would join the show, and we talk all college football, and once college football is over, we're going to do basketball, and I do college baseball too. So I'm really big into that. So thank you guys for checking us out. I really appreciate it. We'll do Rob and Kale show on Sunday night, 9:30. Looking forward to chatting with you guys then. Thanks so much, guys.